Hey everybody, welcome back to Hope Neighborhood Learning Center. We're going to continue on the voting application that we started. So this is part 2 of the voting app. And I just wanted to give everybody a quick preview of where we're going today. So let's go ahead and switch over to my other monitor here. And previously we had ended with just the voting application title up at the top, and then the contract address was shown here. And then you'll notice I added all of these buttons and some inputs here as well. And this is what we will be doing today. And so I can show you just kind of a quick preview here. So if I click on Chairperson, you'll notice the Chairperson shows up here in the console. And then I can type in the proposals. So we had proposals, we had 3 proposals, 0, 1, and 2 are their references within the index. So I'm just going to pull proposal name number or index of 0, and then we can see our proposal name pop up here. And this matches the input that we had in our ballot smart contract. So if I switch over to our smart contract here, or excuse me, to the deploy script, when we deployed our smart contract called ballot, we deployed it with these 3 ballots. And then if we go back to the console, we can see 506. So this is the same ballot that the smart contract was deployed with. And then you can see here that we're going to have a button to give voting rights to a voting address. We're going to have a button to remove voting rights, and then also to delegate your vote, and then check an address, so whether or not they have the right to vote, and then the ability to vote for a specific proposal. You can also see who's winning or who won. And so if I click on who won, right now it's just selecting the first proposal of that array that we deployed the smart contract with. So this is where we're going to be heading today. This is very similar to what we did in a few videos back with the Remix IDE. And you can see here, essentially we're recreating these exact same buttons and the same inputs here. So for example, if I click there, you can see the address that I deployed our ballot smart contract with. So that would be address number 1. And you can see that this address actually has ETH removed from it. So that is how we can determine which is the address in which that the smart contract was deployed with. So I'm going to go back to our view here where we were looking at our React app, and I'll expand that back out. And one of the first things I want to mention is I actually went ahead and imported all the addresses that I want to use in our previous video. When we initiated the node, it generated these accounts. And so it generated about 20 accounts. And so what I'm doing is I'm importing these first 4 accounts into Metamask. And those are the accounts that we'll be using to interact with the application, as well as delegating votes and performing all the functions of the application itself. So I'm going to go ahead and delete what I have in here, and so we can start from scratch. All right, so I have updated our app.js file to be the same as where it was when we previously left off. And then, and so when I can go over back to our React view, you'll see that all we have is our voting application title and contract address. And so we'll be able to walk through this together from the start. There's actually a couple things I want to correct from the previous video. I noticed some typos when I was preparing for this video. The first one is this use state. I forgot a T, so let's go ahead and add that in. It should say use state, S-T-A-T-E. The other thing I noticed was the artifacts folder. Somehow I typed an S instead of an A, so make sure that this is spelled correctly and it says artifacts. Otherwise, things aren't going to be working as we would like. The So things wouldn't work as we'd like. So the first thing that I would suggest you do is similar to what I described earlier, is go ahead and import 4 accounts into your MetaMask wallet. So that way, as we build our application, you will be able to begin to interact with the various buttons that we create and the inputs that we create as well. So I would suggest go ahead and pause the video right now and import these private keys into your MetaMask. And remember, all of these are public addresses. They are not real. And then another reminder, if you're picking this up from the previous video, remember that we are on we're connected to the local host. Which reminds me, there's one other thing that we need to update. I'm not sure if there was a configuration change or what, but previously we had 1337 here in the chain ID, and that worked fine. But now I've just recently looked at the documentation, and it stated that the chain ID should be 31337. So you'll have to update that here in your config.js file. And then what that also means is you'll have to update that in MetaMask when you connect to your local host network. So let's go ahead and click on that, see if we can take a quick look here. And so you'll notice you have to update your chain ID here to be 31337. And then your MetaMask connection should work again when you do that. So go ahead and pause the video, add those first 4 wallets to your MetaMask account or MetaMask wallet. And then on your local host, update to 31337. And then within the hardhat.config.js file as well, update to 31337. And all of this is corrected on the GitHub repo. So if you go into there, you can see the correct chain ID as well. So let's go ahead and get started here. So we've corrected the use state problem. And then we also corrected our chain ID. And now we've imported 4 wallet addresses into MetaMask. And we are good to go here. And so the first thing that we are going to do, here I'm going to minimize this a little bit just so we have a good view of the entire area. So we're going to create some state variables. And these state variables are useful for our inputs. So we'll have a variable and we'll have an input field. And then when we put, like, for example, the voter address into that input field, we can then send that voter address to the smart contract and then interact with the function within the smart contract itself. So we will be using these state variables to do that. So the first state variable we're going to create is one for the voter address. And so go ahead and type in const, and then we'll do address, and then we'll do voter address, and then use state. Hopefully I can spell it right this time. And then we are good to go. So this now is like a placeholder. So we have this address variable, and then we are going to assign it some voter address. The next state variable we're going to create is for checking the voter addresses. So whether or not this person has the right to vote. So we're going to do the same thing, const, and then we are going to create a vote address. And then we're going to check address. And then use state. The next one we're going to create is for the proposals. So I'm just going to go ahead and go through these pretty quickly here. And then, all right, so that variable, the del address, is to delegate, not to be confused with delete. I probably should have changed the name to something else, but yeah, that one is for delegating the address to another voter address. The next one we're going to create is remove voter. So this will give us the ability to remove a specific address. So let's say someone no longer wants to vote anymore. So on this proposal, then you can remove that voter's address. And then let's go ahead and add the last one, which is to select a proposal. So which proposal are you going to vote for? Okay, so now we have set up our state variables. And then the next thing we're going to do here, add the button. So if you recall, the first thing I showed you earlier was the function that allowed us to click a button that showed us who was the owner of the contract, or as we called it previously in the contract, the chairperson. So who is the chairperson? So we're going to create a function that allows us to do a read request from the contract. So if you recall from some of our previous videos, we've looked at Etherscan, and you can look at read-write functions on Etherscan. So this would be one of the read functions that you might see when looking at smart contracts on Etherscan. So async function, and then let's just call it who is chair, and then oops. Aaron, and then console. The error. Okay. Just be consistent. Cool. All right, so now we've created something. Okay. All right, so now we've created a function where we can see who is the chair. So I'm going to go ahead and comment on this. And if you recall from our ballot smart contract, let's see, so here we can see the chairperson is the one who's allowed to actually assign the voting rights to various addresses. Chairperson is also the same person that deployed the smart contract. So this determines who is responsible for the assignments and then and the smart contract itself. So let's go ahead and go back here. And then, so right now, while we do have this function in here, we don't actually have the ability to look at this yet. So you can see a lot of errors here. And so what we need to do is add a way to actually take a look at who that chairperson is and return that to that read request to the console. So let's go ahead and go down to the bottom here where we have our contract address. And so what we want to do is add a button so that way we can call this function of who is chair. So I'm going to go ahead and add this button, click equals who is chair. That was our function name, right? So, and then I'm just going to call it chairperson question mark. And that's it here. Oops. All right. So now when we click this button, it should anyways send who the chairperson is to the console. So the other thing, so let's go ahead and go back over here. So we're still, oh yeah, you know what? Let's go ahead and comment out all of our state variables just for sanity. Will that help for a little bit? And then let's also get this state variable. Looks like I missed that one. And I noticed that it wasn't loading properly, so I went ahead and also shut down the app for a second and then reloaded it here. Oh, and then it's also saying use state is not used. And that's just because we're not using any of those state variables quite yet because the who is chair didn't require any of those state variables. But let's go back over here. And so now it's loading properly. We can see the console is clear of errors. And I'm going to go ahead and click on chairperson. And then this is great. So now that is that address 0, which is the address that we deployed the smart contract with. So this is working wonderfully so far. And so let's go ahead and move on to the next step. Okay, so let's go ahead and uncomment these because it looked like that wasn't actually the problem that we were facing. So we will get this warning, but let's just double check and make sure everything is still loading properly. I'm going to click the chairperson button. Yes, it's loading correctly. So no worries there. So now we're going to go ahead and continue with the next step. And the next step we want to look at is the proposal. So what we want to do is call the proposal. So we want a read function of what the proposal is. So I'm going to go ahead and do an async function, and then we're going to call it check proposal. And we're going to say if there's not a proposal, we want it to return. But and then let's go ahead and set up compiler new ethers providers provider window dot ethereum, and then contract equals ethers dot provider three provider, and oops, excuse me, this is the contract. So we need to say contract ballot address, and we want to pull the ballot ABI provider. And then let's go ahead and try. Data equals wait contract proposals proposal. Then we want to log the proposal name. Then let's see. And then let's throw in a catch for the error, if there is an error. And then we want to log that error. All right. Let's just double check this. So we have our async function here to check the proposal. If there's not a proposal, then we'll return. If there is a proposal, then we will pull that the proposal from the contract through the proposals function, and then return that data to the console. And it'll be in the form of the proposal name. So if you recall, we had proposal A, B, and C. And it will return it in terms of the hex. So we should see that number. So that'll be the same number that we used when we deployed the smart contract. So let's go ahead and take a quick look at this and make sure it's working like we hope it will be. And let's reload this page. Oh, we need a button. That's right. So we need a button to do that. So let's go ahead and create that button. And yeah, and we not only do we need a button, but we also need an input, right? So that way we can check that proposal based on its position in the array. So let's go ahead and just add a break. I am not going to focus on making this look pretty. I'm just going to focus on making it functional for the purpose of learning. So let's go ahead and add a button here. And we are going to on click and then grab or run that check proposal function. And then we'll just say, we'll call it proposal names. And then we need an input here. So input change. So when you actually put something, when there's an on change event within this field, we're going to set the get proposal state variable to the value within that field. And then we'll also put in a placeholder just as a hint, so that way when we're seeing the field, we know what we need to put in there. Proposal. Just say proposal name. Yeah, I think that's good. And then close that out. So let's go ahead and take a look here. Okay, great. Now we have our button. So we have 3 proposals. So in the array, the indexes would be 0, 1, and 2. So let's go ahead and just put in 0. And so we're looking for the proposal name at index 0. And there it is. So it's this 0x506f. So we can actually go back to our code here and look at the deploy, and we can see that this is in position 0 of this array, so 0x506f. So that matches. So that's good news. So that button and input are working. And so we're going to kind of be doing the same thing over and over again here as these 2 functions that we just did. So the next thing, let's go ahead and work on giving the right to vote. So this was in our example from Remix IDE. Let's see, we're kind of sort of going down the list here. So we're going to start here. Then we'll also do the delegate and then the vote function as well. So let's go ahead and go back to our React app and then head back over to our code. And so we're going to do another async function, right? And then let's call this function right. Let's just say to vote. And then we'll say give the right to vote. All right, so this would allow the chairperson to give the right to vote to somebody, any address really. So we want to make sure that there is an address in the input, and if there's not, so then we want it to return. So let's just say check to see if an address was provided. And so let's continue here. Ethereum. Wait, request accounts And so what's different about this, those first two functions were actually both read functions. This time we're performing a write function. So in this case, we'll actually be interacting with the smart contract and performing a transaction recorded on the blockchain. So in this case, we actually need the wallet connected, and we need the wallet that's connected to be the chairperson. So that's what we're working on here. And then we're going to console log the provider. So in our case, because we're using Metamask, it should return the word Metamask, or the provider Metamask. Then we need interact with our ballot smart contract. And then within our contract, let's head back over here, we have a function, scroll down to it, give right to vote. So this is what we're doing here. So what this is saying is that the chairperson is the one who can give the right to vote. And then when a voter is given the right to vote, the weight of that voter is increased to 1. Right, so let's go back to where we were. So the function from the smart contract is give right to vote. And then we want that input, the state variable address. And then let's go back to await transaction wait, and let's go ahead and say console. So we want to log this transaction. And action. Okay. That's great. I just realized a couple things. I think I saw an error up here. So yeah, so this should say voter, not one T, not two T's. And then I think here. Okay. Great. So now we have built out the function to for the chairperson to interact with the smart contract and send an address to the smart contract and give that address a weight of 1, meaning it has that contract, or excuse me, that address has the right to vote. So let's go ahead and go down to here to our UI, and we need to add 2 things. One, we need to add the ability to reassign the state variable of the voter address to an input, and then we need to initiate that function with a button. So we're going to do something similar to what we just did here. So I'm actually going to just go ahead and copy and paste this below it and then modify it. So that we want to call the right to vote function. Then we'll change the name here to give voting rights. And then we need to change the way that this works and update the voter address state variable. And then we'll leave a placeholder of voter address so we know what thing to put in there. So let's go ahead and head over to our application, and you can see that this updated here. And so we can now give voting rights to a specific address. So we had those 4 addresses from our node that we're running. So I'm going to go ahead and grab one of those right now. I'm going to grab account 1, and I'm going to give account 1 voting rights. And so we'll see Metamask pop up. We need to connect to the account 0, which is the account that we deployed with. So I'm going to go ahead and hit next, and then we'll connect. And then, and remember, we're on the local host. We are using fake ETH to perform this transaction. So we're going to go ahead and confirm it. And something happened here. And, you know, sometimes I notice this happen with just as I was running this, and when it's not connected, sometimes it just needed to be restarted. So we're connected now. So I'm going to go ahead and just restart the node and see if that works here. Yeah, it's saying it's unrecognized. And make sure I type that in, give right to vote. Let's go back over to the smart contract. Can just copy that. Make sure I type that in right. Address. Then the other thing, let's just check the state variable. Address, voter address. That looks good. And voter address, that looks good. Right to vote. Let's go back over there. Let's just try one more time. And if this doesn't work, then we will go ahead and restart the node. I had to pause the video to see what was going on, and I went ahead and reset the account in Metamask. So we're going to see if this works this time. All right, I've restarted everything again. Let's go ahead and try this. So I've inputted address number 1, and let's see if we can give this address voting rights. Yay, it worked. So sorry about that, guys. It just looks like it was just a problem with the network. I had to restart it a few times, and then now it is working. Took a couple times to figure this out. So now, though, that we have given the rights to vote to this address here. So this was address number 1. And remember, we deployed at address 0. So let's go ahead and head back to Visual Studio Code. And hopefully we don't have to redo this. Looks like, okay, those are previous problems, it looks like. So let's hope that's true. Yeah, all this looks correct. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to the next thing. And the next piece here is the ability to check the voter. And so what we're going to do here is see if the voter has the right to vote. And we'll do that by querying the voter's address. So we're going to create another async function, and we will call this one check voter. And then what we will do is, if there's not a vote address, we will return it. Then it's going to be some of the same stuff that we've done a couple times now. Dot providers, and then 3 provider. Then we'll go ahead and say const contract equals new ethers dot contract. And this is our ballot address contract again. Log this. Say check voter. Turn the data. And then let's go ahead and catch any errors. If we have the same problem that we've been having with needing to restart everything, I think what we'll do next is we'll just go ahead and write all the code out and then connect and test it. But I'm hoping that we are in good shape now. Everything is looking green below, so that's a better sign than what we were getting before. All right. Oh, yes. So now we need to add the buttons for this function. Did I accidentally? I think I added, yeah, add extra closing brackets there on accident. So now we're going to kind of do the same thing we did before. But this time, this will be the call function for the check voter. Okay. Let's say check voter address. Let's go back. Yay, that looks great. So let's go ahead and copy the address that we just gave voting rights to, and it's working. So we can see here that the hex number is 0x01. So this voter has been given a weight of 1. And then this second field here is whether or not that address has voted, and it's showing false. So this address has not voted yet. So it looks like here it's some repeat of this information above, if I'm understanding this correctly. So, and I think that's right. So we can check this in Remix. So I gave this address the right to vote, and just make sure we're understanding this correctly. So then let's just check this address here. And then we can expand this and look at it. Yeah. So here's the decoded output. So that address we saw here, I was actually wondering what this is. So this here, it represents what if this address had delegated to another address, what address that would be. And then whether or not they voted was the array position 1 here. So this is false. And then the weight of 1. So in our case, the weight is here as well. So this is all looking like it's working great. So let's go ahead and head back over to Visual Studio Code. And then we're going to go ahead and add the next element of our application. And that is the ability to delegate. So we're going to create, as you might guess, another async function. And so we're going to delegate the address. So in this case, there wasn't delegation address given. And we'll return this. And then this will look similar to what we did 2 functions ago. Oops. Sure. Okay, looks good. Oh, and then again, we are actually going to create a transaction here. Get the signer. Need to interact with the contract. Valid address. I think this will be the last time I type this out. I'll start copying and pasting from the other functions and then editing it. And then if we go back over to our contract, we can see, let's see here, let's find it. The function is delegate, to delegate from one address to another. And so, what is different about this is it doesn't have to be the chairperson that delegates. It could be any person that the chairperson gave voting rights to. So, in our case, we know that address number one has been given voting rights, but address number one, let's say, uh, wants to delegate to address number two. So, this function allows address number one to delegate their voting rights to address number two. Address. And we need to wait that transaction. Or wait. Oh, wait, excuse me. And then let's go ahead and log this so we can see it. All right, so now we create this function that does allow that delegation to occur, but we need to create the input and the button here. So all right, so let's see if we, there is, so I had a typo. There it is. And line 21. Oh, all right. Line 100. Okay. There we go. So fix my typos and copy paste errors there. And then let's go ahead and have address number one delegate to address two. So we'll have to go back up to our accounts here. And so grab address two here. And then Metamask, we're going to have to switch accounts. Count 11. This one. And then we will delegate to address two. So delegate. So address one, who has voting rights, is now going to delegate to address two. And we're getting the same error that we had before. We know what we have to do here. We have to essentially restart everything. So instead of doing that, I'm going to go ahead and just finish out the code in Visual Studio, and then we can restart the whole thing and then test everything at once. It's not the preferred way that I like to do it because It's difficult to see when I make mistakes, but I think in the interest of just having to start and restart over and over again, rather than doing that, we'll just go ahead and write out all the functions and then restart everything and then test and see how it works. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add a function that allows someone to remove the right to vote. So we'll do an async function, remove voters' rights, and then we're going to do the same check that we've done each time. We need to make sure that there is an address provided, otherwise return. So check to see if an address was provided. Right, so then this time I'm going to copy and paste here. And then what we're going to change is the way that we're interacting here. And so our state variable is the remove voter. So let's grab this. Voter. And then the aspect of the contract that we're going to be interacting with is the remove rights to vote, or remove voting rights. So we'll copy this and bring this over to here. There we go. And then we need to create the buttons for this. Function here. Just gonna make sure things are still updating here. Okay. Oh. All right. Then we will continue. So the next function that we're going to add is the ability to vote for a specific proposal. So this is going to look very similar to what we did. It's just we're using a different button input and state variable. So we'll go ahead and just copy and paste that. And then what we need to change this function here. So vote for proposal. And then we will change the state variable that we're looking at to select proposal. And we need to add button and an input. And the function here is a vote for proposal. Okay, so now we've added the ability to vote for a specific proposal, and then we can look at which proposal is winning throughout the process of voting. So we're going to go ahead and create another read function here. We'll call this who is winning. Who is winning? Add another button here. You change this to who is winning. Let's check this. It's looking good. So let's make sure I just have everything here correct. So we have this who's winning, provider, provider. So now that we've added that, let's go ahead and move on to the next function. And after all the voting is said and done, we need to know who actually won. So let's go ahead and create another read function. So I'll just copy and paste this guy here. Great. All right, and then we'll say, we'll call this one, so who won? Who won this amazing contest? Winner name, and then we'll just say winning proposal. Yeah, that's good. So now we need a way to actually call that. I think I called it who. Make sure that's right. All right, so let's go over to here. Who won? It's great. So this is actually looking like it's all working again. So let's go back to what we were trying to do earlier. Oh, it does look like the delegation worked here. It's weird. So in one sense, it shows that it worked. Oh, this is when I was testing earlier. This is November 10th. All right. So let's go ahead and try this again. So we want to delegate. So we're on what address are we on? So 79C8. So, okay. So we want to delegate to account 2. All right. So delegation is not working, so I'm going to go ahead and pause the video and restart everything and see if we can get it to work. Okay, so I have reset everything, restarted the node, redeployed the contract, and restarted the application. The other thing I did here is reset the count for Metamask. So before we had the November 10th date delegate when I was testing this out, and it was actually working at that time. So I went in here and excuse me here, and then I went into settings and then advanced, and in the advanced section you can reset the account here, and this clears all the transaction history. So what we're going to do, let's make sure this account still has the right to vote. Let's see if I need to redo that. So yeah, it does not have the right to vote. So I need to switch back over to the account contract was deployed, which is this guy here. And then I need to give voting rights to that account. And it's not working now, so I'm going to go ahead and reset this one as well. There it goes. So now I was able to give voting rights. So let's go ahead and check the voter. And it has voting right of 1. So now let's switch back over account 11. And what we want to do, actually, to give their voting rights to account 12. So let's go back to 11. So 11 is connected. And then I had copied and pasted account 12 into here. And so now we're going to delegate to 12. And it worked. Okay. So let's check number 12. Check the voter, and we can see now they have a voting weight of 1. So let's check 11. And we can see that they have a voting weight of 1, that their vote counted as true because they delegated to somebody else. So it's as if they voted even though they didn't vote for a specific proposal. So now it's dependent on that address to vote for a proposal. So we have 3 proposals. They're identified as 0, 1, and 2 within the array. And so let's make sure we're on the right account. So we're going to actually go ahead. Let's use the account 12, and then we're going to vote for a proposal. So let's vote for proposal 1. So that would be proposal B based on the inputs that we added at the very beginning. So I'm going to go ahead and click vote for proposal. And we had a problem. So let's go ahead and go back to the code and look at our vote for proposal and make sure everything is right. And immediately I just noticed that this was incorrect. So we are sending a proposal to remove voting rights. So it was actually expecting an address, and that is why that wasn't working properly. So we actually want to vote on the selected proposal. Let's just make sure that's the right function. Yep, vote. And so now this should theoretically work. So let's go back to we can just stay on this address that we're on right now. Let's check which one we're on, 10. So I'm going to go ahead and vote for proposal 1 like I was planning on voting. Confirm. Yay. It says delegate your vote. I think that's because I must have written in here the wrong thing. Yes. So let's update that so it makes more sense. Congrats. You voted for. All right. So now it will, instead of saying delegating your vote, it'll actually give us the right thing there. It'll say you voted. And so now what we can do is we can look at who's winning. And so let's match this up. So far the winning proposal is 0x506F72. So let's check against the contracts here, or excuse me, the proposal names. So let's go back over here, look at the ballot, or excuse me, the deploy script. And so that is all the same. So, okay, the difference is these 4 here. So 2041 would be the first one, 2042 would be the second one. So this is index 0, this is index 1. So let's check and make sure it says 2042 in our console here. And it says 2042. So it's capturing the votes correctly. And then let's go ahead and compare this here, the who is winning, to the remix IDE. So let's click on this one, winning proposal. And so it's the same. So in this case, it's saying winning proposal is 1. And so remember the array is 0, 1, and 2. So this is proposal B, which is the same thing that we voted for here. And you can see that the winning proposal is also proposal 1 or proposal B, which is the index within the array of 1. So this is all matching as well. One thing we haven't done is remove the rights to vote. So let's go ahead and actually do that. So this would be something only the chairperson can do. Let's check this voter. Okay, let's go ahead and grab this one. Switch to count 10, I believe. Metamask is not playing nice. All right, count 10. Let's go ahead and remove the right to vote. Oh, you know what? I think that it's doing this because that person delegated. So let's see here. Let's go over to count 12. Let's try to move the right to vote for count 12. No. All right. Well, I have another idea. Oh, that's why. Grab the count 12 address. Let's go back to count 10. Count 10 can actually do that function. There it goes. All right, so that was my bad. That was because I was remaining on the wallet address of that person who we're removing the right to vote from. So remember, you have to go back to the chairperson's address, which is the address that the contract was deployed with. And then from that wallet, you can actually remove the right to vote. And unfortunately, it's saying delegate there. So let's go ahead and go back into Visual Studio Code and fix our console log there. And that is the result of copy and paste errors here. So right there, so remove the right to vote. So now that one is correct. All right, so there you have it. We have gone through every single function within this voting application and got it working properly. Just a couple tips when you're working with the hard hat node here that we learned along the way. Sometimes you just have to restart everything. The other thing that seemed to be actually really effective here was going into the settings within Metamask and resetting the account. So then you remove all this transaction history, and that seemed to clear everything up. So it worked a lot better. And so we were able to call the chairperson. We were able to look at proposal names here. We were able to give rights, voting rights. We were able to check whether or not a voter had the right. We were able to delegate to certain voters, and then we were also able to remove rights from voters. So this is throwing an error now because we already did this here, even though it does say delegate your vote, but that was just the error in my code, and it's in copy and paste error. So it would in the future say removing voting rights or whatever you decide to write there. Then you can look at who's winning. And when you look at who's winning, it returns the position in the array of the proposal that is winning. So if you recall, in our deploy script, we had sent the 3 proposals that we wanted to be considered as part of this smart contract. So this would be considered 0, 1, and 2. And these were converted from names proposal A, B, and C from the previous videos. And so now we can look at who is winning, like I said, and then we can look at who actually won. And in our case, there was only one vote submitted, and that was for contract, or excuse me, proposal B, which was of index 1, like shown here, who is ahead, and then that is the winning proposal being displayed. So there you have it. We have built our first voting application. I think the main really key element that we learned here is how to interact with the smart contract itself and create these various read and write functions that allow a person to interact with the functions within the smart contract and perform transactions as well. And so I hope you're excited about what you learned today. And I would love to hear your feedback in the comments below. Please like and subscribe if these videos are helping you out, and let me know anything you would like to learn in the future. And we can continue to explore and learn Web3 together. All right, I'll see y'all later.